Man, if y'all can't tell by the gargantuan amount of Spider-Man videos I have on my channel, aka 2 in total, I love Spider-Man and I have always loved Spider-Man. I can't even remember the first piece of Spider-Man media I even consumed because it's just been in my life for that long. However, what I can say is that, like most other fans, I grew up alongside the Sam Raimi movies. The Raimi movies were one of my main methods of consuming Spider Man media as a child, and strangely enough, I didn't own Spider Man 1 as a child. That was the only one I did not have. Now, when I was a kid, one day at the grocery store, I saw a Spider Man 1 DVD in a bargain bin near the counter. On an off chance that my mom might say yes, I asked if we could get this, and luckily she did, and I went home and did not watch the movie. I don't know why, I just couldn't figure out how to navigate the menu for some reason. I was just a stupid kid. I literally just didn't watch it. I didn't ask for help or anything. It was so dumb. I have no idea why. But I saw it years and years later. Maybe not years later, but I definitely did end up watching it when I was still very young. And this movie, in some regards, has aged very well and very badly in others. Anyways, let's get right into this. Okay, to begin, I'm going to start by saying that the core reason that this movie even exists is amazing. In other words, Spider-Man's origin is fucking awesome, and it's a great introduction to the character, especially for the masses who probably didn't know much about Spider-Man back in the day. And Spider-Man was already popular as fuck, but this movie skyrocketed this character into levels of fame that are unfathomable for a hero to reach now. It was so popular, in fact, that for years, everyone thought that Spider-Man had organic webbing, that shit came out of his fucking body. But anyways, let's begin now, for real, this time. Peter Parker is this weird, nerdy kid who is outcasted by literally everyone in his school, almost to a comical level. Actually, not even almost. Everyone was literally rooting against his man. I mean, the second he steps on the bus, everyone boos and makes fun of him. And I won't lie, this adaptation of Spider-Man gets one of the things about Spider-Man right that a lot of people seem to forget about Spider-Man. And that is that Peter has to be kind of not a great person before he becomes Spider-Man. It's literally part of the story. He has to learn a lesson. He has to learn to not be a piece of shit. And I kind of like that. But anyways, this is a perfect introduction to Peter Parker. Now we know he's a nerd, no one likes him, he's super smart, and gets almost none of the basic levels of respect that humans are supposed to give each other. Great. We're also introduced to his love interest, Mary Jane, who is one of the worst characters in the whole series, but I'll get into that later. I say that a lot, you know that? But that scene where she's waving at someone behind Peter and he thinks that she's waving at him is perfect. It really makes Peter feel like a fucking loser. This guy gets no goddamn bitches. This film embodies that so well, but then he gets bit by the spider and we have the corny like nightmare sequence and he wakes up buff as fuck. No more anorexic Peter for us. And this is honestly probably the best portion of this movie. The beginning portion, holy shit, they cook so hard with this. Because once he gets his super spider powers, he abuses them naturally, because the character that Peter is up until this point isn't someone who would use these powers selflessly. This is the first time in his life that he's had the chance to stand out and be noticed for something other than being smart. And he goes a little crazy with his power. First off, he beats the shit out of Flash, takes him out in one fucking punch. And you can see in his face when he attempts at flying that he doesn't exactly know how he should feel. His face says, wait, that kind of felt good. You can tell at first that he liked it. His expression was clear, but it's only when Mary Jane gives him a semi-disgusted look that he begins to question his actions. And when the other bully dude calls him a freak, right then is when he begins to question his actions and that maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. But even so, he kind of dismisses it. The judgeful eyes of two people aren't enough to discourage him because he just got these brand new, awesome fucking Superman spider powers. Then we get a cute little scene of him swinging on his first web, and he eats shit on a billboard. And we also see him climb his first wall and leap buildings as Spider-Man. And it's cute scenes like this that are missed in modern superhero movies. There's a reason that we don't really have scenes like this anymore. Most of the superhero movies that are held in high regard, like this one, focus on introducing a character to the masses. They focus on showing a general audience who maybe doesn't know who Spider-Man is or what his whole deal is, what he's all about. And because this movie was so popular, that means that it's going to be hard to top this Spider-Man origin story with any other, at least for the general populace, because to a lot of people, this is not only their definitive Spider-Man and Peter Parker, but it's their definitive Spider-Man origin story. And this is proven by the fact that, as you remember, when I said earlier in the video, for a good while, everyone thought Spider-Man grew webs in his fucking body. But anyways, this is why I cherish cute little scenes like this in these movies, because we just don't really get this shit anymore, because everyone knows Spider-Man's origins now because of this movie. So what would be the point in rehashing the same story? Looking at you, Amazing Spider-Man. Anyways, another reason this first portion is so good is because of the pacing. It's quick and feels like there's no wasted time. This movie keeps the momentum going, and I like that. Side note, one small thing that I noticed on my rewatch that further emphasizes Peter's selfishness before he learns to be responsible and shit was when Uncle Ben's like, hey, don't remember we're gonna fucking paint the kitchen when you get home after school. And he's like, and they got a cute little exchange and shit. And then after he's out doing Spider-Man shit all day, he comes home and we get a shot of just the paint bucket, the paintbrush, surrounded by a fully painted kitchen. And that shot is perfect. I love it. That shot shows us everything we need to know. And then we see Peter's face and he's just full of guilt. It just works so well, and I love that little moment. Tiny, tiny little detail. I also love that every, for the lack of a better word, triumph as Spider-Man is followed by a moment of doubt. Like, for example, his moment of doubt in the other scene was when Mary Jane looked at him like he was crazy. And I like that. It's very effective. And this movie feels so natural because it's paced so well. Everything feels sequential. Every scene has an impact on a future one. This next one being the famous talk in the car. Peter's incident at school ties into this naturally and believably. Uncle Ben confronts him and tries to mentor him. He tells him that he shouldn't use his powers so recklessly and teaches him that doing something just because you can isn't always what's best. Sure, he can overpower Flash, but he shouldn't. He can seemingly overpower whoever he wants, but he shouldn't do it because that's not the right thing to do. And you all know the iconic line, with great power comes great motherfucking responsibility, and this line speaks volumes. This is one of the most memorable and most impactful quotes to come out of any piece of superhero media, and it's perfect. It perfectly encapsulates what Spider-Man is all about. Honestly, I think it's iconic enough to the fact where it's just generally iconic, and not just in superhero media. But of course, Peter doesn't listen. He doesn't listen to Uncle Ben preaching about responsibility because, I mean, why would he? His whole life, he's been put down by people who have a natural advantage over him. He's been made fun of and ridiculed his entire existence just for being who he is. He finally has power and he can use it for himself. He can use it for his own personal gain. And people talk about the iconic line a lot when it comes to the scene. But my favorite part in this scene is where Ben says, I know I'm not your father. And then Peter immediately interrupts him by saying, then stop pretending to be. And man, you can see almost instantly in Ben's face how much that statement hurt him. It fucking, oh my god, it gets me right in the heart. And the regret in Peter's face is clear as day. He just said something he didn't mean in the heat of the moment, and he hurt his uncle. That shit is fucking heartbreaking, man. God, I love that scene so much. And of course, it tied in perfectly with what follows, just like the rest of this origin. I also love this scene because at its core, it's just so relatable. Even out of context, it's super relatable, which is one of the most important things to consider when writing a character or even a scene. And man, it just feels too real because we've all been in this situation before where we're talking to a loved one or a dear friend. We're not even talking, having an argument, and in the heat of the moment, out of sheer anger, we say something we didn't mean, something horrible, and it hurts them. And that feeling is horrible. It's gut-wrenching. And I've even been on the other side where someone says something horrible to me, and look, I know you didn't mean it, but it still hurts. Just no matter how you look at it, this scene is relatable as fuck. It's so sad and emotional, but it's so good. Anyways, after successfully beating the ever-living shit out of Bonesaw and winning the match, Peter goes to collect his prize money, and man, this is the perfect ending to a wonderful first act. Let's get into it. After being literally cheated out of like $3,000, Peter walks out of there furious as fuck when moments later, someone steals the money from the guy who scammed him, and Peter has every chance to stop him. Every chance. He could have tripped him, he could have stopped the elevator, he could have literally beat the shit out of him. But he chooses to let him go out of revenge. And he feels good. There's no denying that he took pleasure out of doing that. And exiting the building, he finds that his dear uncle has been shot. His uncle that he's held so near and dear to his heart, someone who was like a father figure to him, has been shot and killed in the street. Armed with the knowledge of his location, Peter sets out to find his uncle's killer and take his revenge. And once he tracks down his uncle's killer, he finds it to be the very same person who stole the money that he let go. It was his fault that his uncle died. His selfish actions and his stupid want for revenge that caused the death of his uncle. And the end to this first act is a bittersweet one indeed, with the death of Uncle Ben fresh in our minds. The next few scenes, mourning his death, are definitely a tearjerker. Fuck me, it hits you right here, man, it hits you right here. But Ben's death wasn't for nothing. As unfortunate as it was, and as preventable as it was, Peter came out of this experience a better person. He came out of this having learned something. His uncle was right. With great power comes great responsibility. Previously, Peter acted purely on selfish reasons. He entered the wrestling match to buy a car to impress Mary Jane. He let a criminal go for his own selfish reasons, and he lied to his aunt and uncle for those same reasons. But not anymore. No longer will he act inconsiderately for others. From now on, he's the selfless hero that we've all come to love in our lives. A hero who prioritizes the safety of others over his. A hero who is willing to make his own life a living hell just to make sure the streets are safe. A hero who realizes he's been given a rare gift and that he should use it for the good of mankind. Peter has finally become Spider-Man. Woo, man, what a fucking fantastic first act. God, I love the Spider-Man origin story so much. It's just perfect. There's no wasted space. Every scene feels like it belongs and has purpose. It's gripping and emotional and sets up this version of Spider-Man perfectly. It's by far the best Spider-Man origin we've seen on the big screen. I don't think I have an unpopular opinion when it comes to that. Although, to be fair, there's only two of them, but one is by far the better one. But remember, this movie's got two main characters, technically. It's got two origin stories for two very different people. Let's move on to arguably Spider-Man's greatest foe, or at the very least, a contender for that role. My boy Norman Osborn, or the Green Motherfucking Goblin. Now look, I'll be the first to say that the Green Goblin isn't exactly my favorite Spider-Man villain in the world, and don't get me wrong, I fucking love him, but most of the time, I end up preferring other villains over him. The Goblin is the GOAT in Spider-Man, in Spectacular Spider-Man though, and if you disagree, you are factually incorrect. I love the Goblin in that show, fuck. Anyways, the Goblin's origin in this movie happens alongside Peter's, unlike more modern Spider-Man movies like the Tom Holland trilogy, where the villains are either pre-established with some sort of prologue, or they're just reused, No Way Home and all that. Anyways, going back and revisiting this is kind of refreshing. I mean, nowadays everyone knows who Norman Osborn is and his relationship with Peter Parker, but this movie, like most older films are, is sort of a time capsule. Takes you back to a time where the masses legit did not know who the fuck any of these people were. And his origin, just like Spider-Man's, is great. I wouldn't say it's as gripping as Spider-Man's inspiring tale of accepting your responsibility as a hero who fights for the good of mankind and defends the defenseless. It's more of a, oh, so that's why he's a bad guy. Not to say that it's bad, but you have to compare it with the Spider-Man origin story. That's just kind of unfortunate. It's more of just an explanation as to why he is who he is. It still all makes perfect sense though, and it's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as the 80s, aka mad scientist tests his experiment on himself because of time constraints. Let me break it down for you. If you for some reason haven't seen this movie, Norman Osborn, brilliant scientist specializing in military research, is looking to make a performance enhancer that will increase a person's strength and speed astronomically. 800% increase in strength. Jesus fucking Christ. All scientists but one say that it's ready for human testing due to a few tiny side effects, like aggression and insanity. And this one scientist on Norman's team is like, yeah, so we have to start over completely. And the military guy's like, hurry up, if you don't have it by X date, you're Cooksville. So naturally, Norman tests it on himself and kills the same scientist that said they had to start over, and boom, he blacks out. Simple origin, but effective. One important thing to take notice of in this first act is how Norman acts towards Peter and what their relationship signifies. Norman is the only person who actually praised Peter before he was Spider-Man. He's kind of like a pseudo father figure to him, and you can see how much Peter enjoys Norman's appreciation. It's the classic relationship between Peter, Harry, and Norman. Their fucking iconic relationship dynamic where Norman is way prouder of Peter than he is of Harry. Peter even looks up to him as a scientist, even saying that he's read all of his research, calling it fucking genius and brilliant. I do wish they focused a little more on this certain relationship dynamic between Norman, Harry, and Peter, but I'm glad that it's there. I'm glad that it's present. I also like the portrayal of the Goblin in this movie, with Norman having episodes blacking out and basically going on a crazy killing spree. The Goblin is cool as fuck in this movie. He's just an outward manifestation of Norman's struggles. And honestly, Norman kind of gets fucked over in this movie quite a bit. He even gets kicked off the board for some really, really important people. They're basically like, yeah, we're selling Oscorp and we're going with this other dude's military research instead of yours, and yeah, we just don't like you anymore. And he just kills them as the Goblin, which, makes sense. He doesn't just go on a crazy killing spree for no reason. He has a legit motivation. His anger for being excluded manifests in the Goblin. This leads into his first fight with Spider-Man at the Oscorp Festival, and now we've officially finished with both origins and are now pitting our characters against each other. And to be honest, this is kind of where the movie falls off just a little bit for me. Not to say that the rest of it is bad, but the first act is what really sells it. This is kind of a thing with a lot of origin stories, at least when it comes to films. Most origin movies focus so heavily on the origin, which I mean, no shit. And the origins most times end up being fucking amazing. They end up being fantastic, just like this one. But they also have to utilize the character that they just built up for the rest of the movie. And given the fact that they don't have much runtime left, the story that follows is most of the time not nearly as fleshed out or as interesting as the origin. There are plenty of movies like this. For example, Batman Begins. The best part of that movie is the first half. It's so fucking good. And I'm not saying the fucking crazy scarecrow shit in the second half is bad, but it's just not as good. And like I said, this movie has the same issue. The second story is sort of crammed in, and it really has to share the spotlight with the origin. Again, not saying it's bad, just saying it's a trend I've noticed amongst movies with origins in them. Usually the origin is followed by a pretty simple storyline, like the one in this movie. It's kind of just a really, really normal Spider-Man story. Basically, Spider-Man and Green Goblin. Green Goblin kills people. Spider-Man stops him. That's about it. But I would be lying if I said it wasn't a ton of fucking fun. Like I said, I still like the second half a lot. I just prefer the first half. Now I'm gonna go ahead and list off a bunch of shit that I didn't really like in this movie. But first, let's address two things that I absolutely fucking loved. Oh my god, having Willem Dafoe and J.K. Simmons in this movie was a fucking godsend. It's an understatement to say that they both did a phenomenal fucking job. Willem Dafoe, especially, is really selling it with those goblin faces. His face is so malleable, it's like the Mario 64 face. He is so emotive and portrays the goblin so well. I mean, have you heard his laugh? It's so damn good. Anyways, he kills it, and so does J.K. Simmons. I mean, everyone knows he's an amazing actor. Everything that he's in is always going to be good. He's also fucking hilarious as J. Jonah Jameson. Holy shit, it's like he was made to play this role. Anyways, let's get into the shit that I don't really fuck with in the second half, you know. And I guess we're gonna get into what I don't like about this movie in general after dick riding it like crazy. First off, I don't like that Norman finds out Spider-Man is Peter. Well, bad phrasing. That's not what I meant. I don't like how it happens. Don't get me wrong, I like that it happens. It literally forwards the story and leads us into the final face-off against the Goblin on the bridge. But I don't like the fact that he finds out from that stupid-ass drop of blood. I know this shit is nitpicky, but how the fuck did he hear that shit? Also, doesn't he supposedly black out every time he has a Goblin episode? So how the fuck would he remember fighting Spider-Man, let alone a specific detail like that? Although at the end of the movie, the Goblin and Norman are sort of implied to be one and the same, so I guess it's okay? I don't really know. Or maybe he became the Goblin right then and there. I don't fucking know. It's just weird. It's kind of nitpicky, but I think it's strange. Okay. I guess this is just going into the things that I generally didn't really enjoy about the movie. First off, the biggest one, Tobey Maguire. Okay, let me preface this. I am not someone who watched these movies recently for the first time. Like I said earlier, I grew up with these movies like many other people did. I've seen them all countless fucking times, but honestly, one of my least favorite things about these movies, and one of the things I complain about the most, is Tobey Maguire himself. He is not my Spider-Man, and honestly, out of the big three Spider-Man, the movie Spider-Man, I think he might be my least favorite. Now hear me out. Tobey's movies are probably among some of my favorite Spider-Man movies. I mean, Spider-Man 2, come on. But holy fuck, Tobey is so bad as Peter Parker. This man's performance isn't horrible, but it's not good either. And it is very noticeable, especially with Willem Dafoe in this movie as the main villain. His delivery is just so unbelievably bland and lifeless, I just cannot take it. It kind of ruins some scenes. More than just his performance, Peter's also weirdly creepy towards Mary Jane in this movie. I mean, do people just gloss over this? Like, gloss over the scenes of him following her and talking to himself? Like, what the fuck is that shit? That shit is so fucking weird. Tobey just doesn't have the charisma that Peter Parker needs to have. Especially as Spider-Man. As Spider-Man, he has no personality whatsoever other than hero. He has zero energy, he's unfunny, and he's not friendly. You could tell me that this isn't actually Peter Parker behind the mask and that instead it's just some random guy, and I just might believe you. I truly just do not get what people see in him, and I don't think I ever will. To me, Tobey has always been strung along by his stories. His movies are as beloved as they are because he's attached to a really good narrative. But Tobey as Peter and Spider-Man himself, nah, not for me. I prefer Andrew and Tom over him any day. Again, not saying the movies are bad. I fucking love the movies. I just don't like Tobey, and I never have. Now on to everyone's least favorite character, by far, Mary Jane, by far the worst character in this entire trilogy. She's just the biggest fucking asshole. Honestly, I don't really want to get into it too much. I'll save it for the second movie, but she's mean, she's manipulative, and she cheats a lot. Why did I say that word like that? And she's also super childish and petty. Nobody likes her. Come on, man. But yeah, that's about it. And I think this is the perfect time to segue into the ending of this movie. And man, I love the ending of this movie so much. The conflict on the bridge is super cheesy, but very, very effective, and it demonstrates Peter as someone who is able to find a solution when there is seemingly no solution in sight, which is great for Spider-Man. That's a fucking amazing Spider-Man trait. It's in all his stories. He makes things work, and it's awesome. And in the battle in the abandoned fucking cemetery or whatever it is, it's just amazing. Something about it is just so anime. The battle damage suits, the fight taking place in literal ruins, the blood, punches being thrown left and right, and the climax to what the entire conflict between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin has been building up to. Fuck, I love this. I don't know why. It's just a weird personal preference thing with me. I love final battles, the whole vibe and aesthetic that comes with them. It just scratches my brain in just the right place. And the exchange between Peter and Norman, when Norman takes off the mask and he's like, I've been like a father to you. Be a son to me. And then he hits him with the, I had a father. His name was Ben Parker. And the fucking Danny Elfman Spider-Man theme is playing. Holy shit, it's so good. And the reveal of Norman as the Green Goblin to Peter, oh my god, it was also so fucking good. You gotta think about it, man. This is somebody that he looked up to, somebody that praised him and recognized his feats before he was Spider-Man. Like I said, kind of a pseudo father figure to him, and it turns out that this great man, or supposedly great man, turned out to be the Green Goblin. Like, fuck, that shit, you can see it in Toby's face. This last scene, by the way, I'll dismiss it. He actually does a pretty good job in this final battle. You can see in his face the fucking pure shock. Oh my god. Everything about this final battle, awesome. Awesome. Anyways, then the movie ends and Peter's like, sorry, MJ, I gotta go do Spider-Man stuff. Can't be your boyfriend. Bye, bitch. That's not what he says. Anyways, all in all, this movie means a lot to me, and this whole trilogy means a lot to me, and revisiting them is always a fun time. And I can say without a doubt that these movies will forever hold a special place in my heart. The issue I have with this movie, the issues I have with this movie don't even come close to ruining it, and I still have a blast every time I watch it. These movies are also epic as fuck for another reason, and that's Danny Elfman's music, which I did not mention. Oh my god, what a sin. The fucking GOAT. God, the tracks on this movie, they just soar high into the heavens, more than you could ever imagine. The soundtrack elevates this movie to new grounds that it otherwise just couldn't have reached without it. I'm just trying to say that Danny Elfman did a great job, and I think the music in this movie is just as integral to the outcome of the movie as everything else is. Fuck, man. Amazing, amazing music. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I didn't realize this video was this long. I'm just looking at the time right now. But thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, you're incredible. And if you didn't, you're still incredible. Now go ahead, have a great day. Go eat some cereal, eat some snacks. Do whatever you'd like. Enjoy your day. And goodbye.